Hello all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be talking about document sequencing, accounting sequence, and reporting sequence. As most of you know, like document sequencing is an existing functionality in 11.9, and the same is even being carried forward to release 12. But the accounting and reporting sequences are the new functionality in release 12. First, I'll be showing you the setups required from a normal document sequencing perspective, and then I'll proceed towards accounting and reporting sequence. So the first prerequisite for the document sequencing is you should ensure that the profile option sequential numbering needs to be set to an appropriate value. I can just show you that. So let me go to system and responsibility. Go to profile, system, sequential numbering. Search for sequential numbering profile option. So you can see the sequential numbering profile option value is set to partially used. So you have three values: always used, not used, or partially used. So if you say not used, then the even though you set up your document sequencing or accounting or reporting sequencing setups, system will not generate any sequence number if you go for not used. So better go for always used or partially used. So if you go for always used, then for all the different categories, it is mandatory that you need to set up the sequence. But if you say partially used, for certain categories you can set up the document sequencing, and for the other categories you need not set up the sequence. So better go for partially used or always used depending on your requirement. So in this case I have selected partially used. So in the case of partially used, what will happen is, if for a particular category, if the document sequencing is not set up, then it will throw a warning message, and if you say proceed further, it will allow you to proceed further. But whereas in the case of always used, system will always expect a document sequence to be set up for each and every category. If the corresponding document sequence setup is not available, the system will not allow you to proceed further. So better go for partially used. So this is the first setup, and then set up the corresponding document sequence. So first you need to set up a sequence, and then you need to assign the sequence to your appropriate category, and then you can proceed with the entering of the transactions using those categories. So under general ledger responsibility, go to setup, financials, sequences, document, first define. So I'll just use the naming convention. Maybe I'll just say ARV underscore doc underscore sequence, and you can say, set up your document sequence for different applications: general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and so on. So first I'll try with general ledger, and from which date you want this sequence to be effective. I'll just say 1st February 2020, and then initial value at from which number you want the document sequence to start. So I'll just give an initial value of say 100, or maybe I'll just give 10,000, and the type, whether you want to go for automatic, manual, or gapless. So better go for automatic. If you go for manual, then you can see the initial value is grayed out. The reason being, if you go for manual, then you need to manually enter a particular document sequence number when you are entering a transaction. So if you say automatic, the system will ask what should the initial value. I'm giving 10,000, so that system will automatically generate the number starting from 10,000. And if you go for gapless is actually a legal requirement in certain European countries. If you go for gapless, what will happen is, even though journals are created using this document sequence, and if the journals are deleted, then there are certain programs which you can run, which will show all those document sequence numbers or the journal details which are actually deleted using that particular document sequence number. So if you go for gapless, then for each and every document number there should be an audit trail. So better go for automatic, and then let me save this. So if you check this particular checkbox, then a message pops up as soon as the document number is generated, but we do not want that, so I'm just not checking this checkbox. So this is the first step, which is creating of the document sequence, and the next step is assigning of this particular document sequence to different categories. So copy my document sequence, Go to the next step, which is assigning. So when you say category from a journal ledger perspective, so if I select application of journal ledger, then these are the different journal categories. But whereas if you select application of say payables, then the category is nothing but different kind of a transaction, whether it's a standard invoice or a debit memo or credit memo or expense report or check payment or electronic payment and so and so. So these are the different categories. And from a receivable perspective, again, it's when you select say receivables, the categories would be a different kind of a transaction types and different receipt, whether a miscellaneous receipt, standard receipt, and different transaction type, whatever the transaction types you have defined in your system under a specific ledger. You can see all those transaction types. So it is very important to understand the significance of category. So only in the case of journal ledger, category refers to the journal categories, but whereas in payables or the receivables or other modules, there are different kind of a transactions which are entered under those modules. So let me select journal ledger and the category, maybe we'll just say adjustment and ledger vision operations. I want this to be effective from 1st February. And this is my sequence. Whatever I have created will come in the drop down. And now there is something called method again. Method is actually automatic, manual, or null. So if you want, you can create a separate document sequence for automatic journals versus the manual journals. When you say automatic journals which are created in GL from the inbound interfaces, I mean, it's basically you are creating those journals from the external system. Manual journals are journals which you create manually within the GL journal form. So when you say null, then you are using the same document sequence for both automatic as well as manual journals. So I'm just saying null. Save. Sorry. Okay. So now I have created this particular document sequence with the starting number of 10,000, and I have assigned this particular document sequence to the journal category or the category of adjustment. Now I will try to create a journal ledger using this particular journal category of adjustment. Then I should have my document number to be generated with a value of say 10,000, because 10,000 is my initial sequence value, whatever I have assigned under the document sequence. Okay. So go to journals, enter new journal. I'll just say test doc sequence. So under vision operations, this is my journal category, and the period I'll just say February 20. Okay, looks like the February period is closed by somebody. Let me just open the period. Let me open the February period. Okay, open the target period January as well as February. Wait for the February period to be opened. So once the February period is open, I should be able to create a journal entry, and then we can check if the document sequence number is generated. Okay, February period is open. Let me try to create a journal under February. Just say test doc sequence. Feb. So just pass a simple journal entry, and then you can see whether the document number is generated or not here. So maybe pass it in it, maybe just debit something, debit my audit fee, and then credit my cash account. 25,000. Save this. So here you can see as soon as hang on, um, it's showing a value of 4. I think it should show 10,000 because that is what is the document sequence which I have assigned. So let me double check by showing 4. This is the sequence. Let me go to assign F11 general ledger category adjustment vision operations. Okay, so this is the old sequence which I have assigned when I'm actually testing this, but this is my new sequence. So this should be effective because the start date of this particular document sequence is 1st February 2020, and my journal whatever I have created is also for February. So ideally, if I create a journal using a GL effective date which starts on or after 1st February 2020, system should use this sequence. And if I go to the sequence definition, F11, Control V. Okay, so 10,000, and this is also 1st February 2020. So it ideally should use 10,000, whereas it's using, let us even end it this as well. Okay. Now the only okay, so this is the only one which is active from 1st February 2020. Okay, let us try to create one more journal and let's see. Test doc sequence 2. Debit audit expenses and credits a cash account. And try to save this. Again, it is generating 5. Okay, February 24th, February 2020. Adjustment is my category. No, is it not taking effect? So we'll try one more last journal. Okay, it's still showing 6. Vision operations. I'm under vision operations. Yes, I'm under vision operations. We'll test one more last one. set document sequences, document. Let's go to assign screen. F11. Oops. F11 adjustment, general ledger, and then vision operations. We have only two, so this is already disabled, and this is the other one which is active. 1st February 2020. So ideally, this should be the one considered. Okay, I'm not sure why it's still taking this. So let me try one more thing. Let me just try to create one more new journal category, and I'll try to assign this to that new journal category, and then let's see. Setup, journal, category. Ideally, it should work, but I'm not sure what's going on. So let me try to create a new test journal category. Test journal category. Test journal category. Save this. Okay. Okay. Defining of document sequencing is fine. Now try to assign general ledger, test journal category, vision operations, and then start date 1st February 2020, and assign our ARV doc sequence. Save this. Okay. To be safe side, let me just switch to a different responsibility and then come back. General ledger vision operations. Now let us try to create a new journal. Test doc sequence 4. And then this time use our journal category, test journal category, February 20. And then just maybe you can debit and credit the same account. That's fine. It should not make any difference. So let me just use the same account as a credit as well. And then $10,000 and then try to save this. Yeah, here you go. I don't know what happened with the other journal category, but anyways, so here you can see as soon as I saved the journal, document number got generated, and you need not post the journal entry. As far as the document sequence number is concerned, it gets generated as soon as you save the journal entry. Even the document sequence number is generated, you can still delete the journal entry. And for the next journal, the document number would be 10,001. But if you use for a gapless, then there are some kind of a reports which you can run, and system will show the details of the journal which got deleted where the document sequence number was 10,000. Okay, so this is how you create your document sequence, assign the document sequence to a particular category, and then try to enter a transaction or a journal using that particular category, and then you can see the system generating the document sequence number based on the initial sequence value, whatever you have entered. Okay, so this is how you continue, you set up the document sequence. Now the next thing is accounting sequence. Okay, so what is the significance of the accounting sequence? There are certain countries wherein the law requires that apart from the document sequence number, there should be something called accounting sequence number, which should be generated. So generally, the accounting sequence number will be generated at the time of posting of the journal entry. So that is like whenever your journal entry is created, uh, normally your document sequence number will be generated, and as long as the journal is not in a posted status, you can very well delete the journal. So that is the reason why there are some countries which will insist on the accounting sequence number, and accounting sequence number will be generated only at the time of posting of the journal entry. Only once the journal entry is posted, your accounting sequence number will be generated. So as soon as the journal entry is posted, the system will not allow the journal to be deleted. So document accounting sequence number, once it's generated, it will be intact. I mean, you can still reverse the particular posted journal entry, but reversal will be another journal entry, and even for that particular journal entry, there will be a different accounting sequence number. So that's the one of the reason why certain countries insist on the accounting sequence number. Now let me show you the steps on how to create the accounting sequence and generate the accounting sequence number. We can now go to same asset, financials, sequences, accounting, define. First, create a new sequence similar to your document sequence. You need to create a sequence and then assign the sequence. So I'll just say ARV accounting sequence. Okay. So this is the kind of a version number for this particular sequence. I'll just say ARV accounting version 1, and then I want this to be effective from 1st February 2020, and I want this initial number to start from say 50,000. Apply. So that's the accounting sequence. Now I need to assign the accounting sequence. Rather, I can just query for that here. Here you can see, click on view assignments. You don't see any assignments because we did not assign it to any sequence. Okay. So yeah, you can go here, assignments, create. What is the context? I'll just say ARB accounting assignment. And what is the ledger? Vision operations. And this is very important, sequencing event and sequencing entity. So first thing is sequencing entity. Search for this. So here you have two things, journal ledger and subledger entry. If you want the accounting sequence number to be generated in GL, then for the GL journals, then select GL journal entry. If you want the accounting sequence to be generated even for the subledger journals, then select the subledger entry. So for the time being, I'm just selecting this GL journal entry, and that is a sequencing entity. And next one is sequencing event. At what time you want this particular event to be generated? At the time of posting of the journal. So select posting. Select this require assignment checkbox, and then validate sequence by journal effective date. There is only one option, so select that. Assign sequence by. Again, you have only one option, journal effective date. Select that. And if you want this particular accounting sequence to be effective only for a specific balancing segment value, then you can select that. Otherwise, you can leave it blank. And then assign sequence. cannot duplicate accounts into the same legal entity. Just say apply. Okay, so again for a testing purpose, I have created another context. So maybe it is not allowing me to create a new context. So what I will do is I will query for that earlier context, whatever I created, which is exactly the same manner I have created. And then under that context, I can assign the sequence whatever I have created. Okay, so let me cancel this. Okay, so search for that context. It starts with X. Okay, so this was the context which I have created earlier, XXXR underscore AR. Okay, now click on, or otherwise what I'll do is I'll just click on update. Okay, so this is the context which I have created earlier. So it's like similarly whatever I've shown you earlier. Okay, so this is where we need to assign the sequence. So the sequence is ARB accounting sequence, and I want this to be effective from 1st February 2020. And I want this for all the journals, whether it's actual or budget and encumbrance. And I want it for all the journal sources and all the general categories. But if you do not want this for a specific journal source or general category, you can click on add exception and you can add. Otherwise, you can just leave the default value so that the accounting sequence will be generated for all the journal sources and all the general categories and all the balance type, whether it's actual or budget or encumbrance. Okay. Now once I click on apply, okay, assignment has been. So for the time, we just ignore this. So focus only on this one. So basically, this is my accounting sequence context. Under this particular accounting sequence context, whatever the sequence, whatever I have created earlier, I have assigned the particular sequence. So this particular in this sequence, the starting value is 50,000. Now, when I try to create any journal, and once I post the journal entry, I should be able to see an accounting sequence number starting with 50,000. Now, let us see that. Try to create a journal entry. Journals, enter new journal, test accounting sequence, February 20, and this is not specific to any journal category, so I can just leave any category there. Just enter any journal entry. Maybe I'll just say audit expenses debit 15,000, and then cash credit 15,000. Save this. Okay, see now the document sequence is generating for the adjustment category as well. And what has happened earlier, anyways. Okay, so this is where your accounting sequence number is generated. As of now, you can see it is blank because I have not yet posted the journal entry. So save this. As soon as you save, your document number will be generated, but not the accounting sequence number. So for the accounting sequence number to be generated, I need to post the journal entry. So wait for the posting program to be completed, and once the posting program is completed, we can requery the journal to see if the accounting sequence number is generated. Okay. The posting program is completed. Now let me requery this journal 11 11. Here you can see this is my sequence name, ARV accounting sequence version 1, and this is the number. So this is how your accounting sequence numbers or accounting sequences can be generated for the journals whenever you post the journal. Now, the last one is about the reporting sequence. So, a reporting sequence will be generated here. Now, I'll show you the steps to create the reporting sequence. Again, go to the same sequence steps: setup, financials, sequences, accounting, define. So again, for the reporting sequence is concerned, again it's the same steps. Define the sequence and assign the sequence. I have already created one sequence. Maybe I'll just show you that. This is the reporting sequence which I have created, XXS underscore REP. So if I just click on update, I can show you that. This is the sequence name. Maybe I can just update it. I'll just say ARV underscore reporting. This is a version. Maybe I'll just say ARV reporting version 1. I just want this to be effective from say 1st of February. And I want the initial number to start from say 500. Apply. Enter it. Enter that is okay, sorry, it doesn't enter it. Apply. Okay. Let me just query my sequence. ARV reporting sequence. This is what I have created. Okay. Now, if I click on assignments, I do not have any assignments because I did not assign this to any sequences. Okay. Now go to the similar to the other sequences. Now go to the assignment. Now try to create a sequence context, and then under that context assign this particular sequence. Now, again, for the reporting, I have already created one sequence context. Let me query for that. This is the sequence context which I have created. Now let me click on update and again rename them properly. Rename it as ARV reporting context. Okay. So as far as these things are concerned, ledger name is vision operations, sequence entity is journal entry, and it is very important the sequence event should be GL period close, because reporting sequence will be generated at the time of closing of the period. So document sequence will be generated at the time of saving of the document. Accounting sequence will be generated at the time of posting of the journal entry, whereas reporting sequence is generated at the time of closing of the period. Again, reporting sequence is a requirement in certain European countries, wherein a separate sequence number to be generated apart from the document sequence number and accounting sequence number, a separate sequence number to be generated for each journal at the time of closing of the period. And whenever you open the period, then again the reporting sequence number will be reset. And then once you close the period, again a proper reporting sequence number will be generated. Okay, again, so sequence event is very important. As far as the accounting sequence is concerned, the sequencing event will be posting, but whereas reporting sequence is concerned, the sequencing event should be GL period close. Again, validate sequence by will be general effective date, assign sequence will be general effective date. Again, this I want this to be effective for all the balancing segment values. Click on assign sequences. So assign the sequence whatever we have created earlier. So click on the plus button. I clicked on plus button to assign the sequence whatever we have created earlier, the reporting sequence. Just query for that ARV reporting, and then I just want this to be effective from 1st February 2020, and then apply. Okay. Now, if you try to close the period, then system should generate a reporting sequence number. And I have already shown you a screen wherein like you should be able to see the reporting number once it is generated. Now, let us go back to our GL responsibility, General Ledger vision operations. Let me just open the Java pages. It got closed. So, as I explained earlier, once your period is closed, your reporting sequence number should be generated, and sequence name should be appearing here, and sequence number should be generated here. But the main important thing with this reporting sequence is whenever you set up this reporting sequence, all the now in this case I have set this reporting sequence with an effective date of 1st February 2020. So the requirement is all the periods prior to February 2020 should have been in a closed status in order for the system to properly generate the reporting sequence. But unfortunately, this is my testing environment, and if you go to this open period close in this testing environment, I have so many periods which are in open status, and they are already, I mean, they go back up to 2007, I believe. 2007 or 2008. Yeah. Go up. They're permanently closed. Okay, so they are open from roughly 2007. So that means in order to show you the reporting context or reporting sequence number to be generated, I need to close all the periods from 2007 to 2020, which is practically not possible in this testing environment. So I'll not be able to show you the reporting sequence number to be generated, but the steps whatever I've shown are sufficient in order for you to test this reporting sequence functionality. So now when I try to, you would have observed like whenever we try to close or open the period, apart from the open or close period program, there is a program called create create reporting sequence is the program which is automatically triggered. So this is the program which will reset or assign the sequence. So here you can see like create reporting sequence. Here you can see the state, the parameter is assigned. So that means this is a program which got triggered whenever I close the February period. And here you can see the parameters actually defaulted with reset. So that means these are the scenarios wherein I have opened the Jan or February 2020 period. Okay. So this is how you create different kind of sequences: document sequence, reporting sequence, as well as the accounting sequence. Accounting and reporting sequence are optional. They are kind of a mandatory in certain countries, but otherwise they are optional in all other countries. And document sequence number is again based on your business requirement. It's an option. If you want, you can enable that. Otherwise, it's not required. Thank you. Thanks for watching my video. For interesting videos on Oracle Financials, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.